I'm Andrew Halford, a professor of English here at West Kentucky Community and Technical College, and we're here to discuss the 100th anniversary of the Kalosophic Club here in Paducah. In the September 3rd issue of the Paducah Sun was a really interesting article about the history of the Kalosophic Club dedicated to lifelong learning in the Life, the Style section. We're joined by 4 of the current members of the Kalosophic Club as they begin their celebration of their 100th anniversary. They'll be introducing themselves, and then we'll have a conversation about the significance of the Kalosophic Club and the celebration. And we'll start with
Shadle. I'm Sherry Shadle, and this is my 24th year as a member of the Kalosophic Club of Paducah.
Okay. Sherry?
I'm Ann Webb. I'm the current president of Kalosophic.
Okay. Thanks, Ann.
I'm Jan Crawford. I'm a current member. I'll be giving my 9th paper this year in Kalosophic.
Okay.
And I'm Margie Pope. I finished my 25th paper in 2003, and I am now what we would call either an associate or an honorary member of the club.
Okay. And I understand that you're also the historian for the Kalosophic Club. Is that correct,
Yes,
Margie?
that's kind of the way it's worked out.
Okay.
Simply because I was interested in trying to trace down where we actually started, because we knew it was 1906, but we weren't sure exactly some of the details.
Okay. So in 1906, the Kalosophic Club was formed. Tell us a little bit about the history of the meaning of Kalosophic.
It comes from 2 Greek words, kalo and sophia, which means the beauty of wisdom. Sometimes it's interpreted as beauty of learning or knowledge.
Okay.
But the idea is what you were going to say, I think.
Well, it's just the connection with the article in the Paducah Sun about lifelong learning, and that, you know, this is something that we need to see as being ongoing. How did the Kalosophic Club get started? What are its roots?
Well, we're 100 years old, but Delphic Club is a little older. They were established in 1899, and it was 2 of the members of the Delphic Club who, for whatever reasons we've never been able to tie down exactly, they decided to start Kalosophic Club for some of the younger women in their families.
So these women probably would have been in their 20s, early 30s, right?
That's the way it looks, yes.
And I was interested to learn that many of those original members of Kalosophic were single young women.
Right.
Who were coming together to have
just for another
discussions.
learning experience, I guess,
Okay.
would be one way to put it. And their first meeting, we do know where it was. It was next to the George Wallace House on 9th Street,
Okay.
where the 9th Street House was for quite
Exactly.
a long and
Yes,
satisfying
yes.
time for us.
Yes.
It was next door to that. I think one of the Lower Town people, Phyllis Utes, I think her name is, she has built a new building where the Scott home was that burned down
Okay.
in 2003.
Okay. And it was one of their daughters who was an original
Right.
member of
Right.
Kalosophic.
Right.
So the Delphic Club had been active, had been in existence for about 7 years when Kalosophic started in 2006.
Right, in
Okay.
1906.
1906.
That's
This is the
100 years.
celebration.
Right.
This is 2006, isn't it? So it is 100 years old this year.
Right.
Sherry, I understand that you are the active member who has delivered at this point the most papers.
That's correct.
Is that the nice way to state
That is very
you-
nice to say. I am not the oldest, but I have given, this will be my 24th paper. It's hard to believe in my life I've done that.
Okay, now let's talk about papers.
All right.
Because I've lived in Paducah for 40 years, and I've heard about the Kalosophic and the Delphic clubs during those 40 years. And I've always been interested in this paper concept. So when we talk about a paper, we're talking about
A research paper.
A research paper.
Right.
My goodness.
When I was invited to become a member, I was told that it was a 45-minute read paper. So in my years of doing this, I have discovered that when I double space, that's anywhere from 20 to 25 pages of written work, of research.
Okay. Now, every member does how many papers in a year's time, Sherry?
One per year.
One per year.
Yes.
And Margie, you meet every Friday, is that right?
Between, what is it, the third or
First
second?
Friday after Labor Day.
First Friday after Labor Day until sometime in late April, or sometime in April.
Okay. And Sherry, how many members of Kalosophic do you have? How many active members?
Well, our current membership, well, we have a membership requirement of 24. Sometimes we have a few less than that if somebody has to leave town, but we have 24 members.
Active members.
Active members. And I'm not sure how many honorary members there are now. Honorary members are the ones, as Margie said, who have given 25 papers.
There's 9, I think.
And there may be.
I think
And
there's 9
they
of
are
us.
still invited to come every week. Once you give 25 papers, you can just come and enjoy.
And relax.
Yes,
And relax.
absolutely.
Jan,
Yeah.
you have a really interesting story in this article that was in the Paducah Sun about your children
Yes.
being so fascinated with your wanting to be part of the Kalosophic Club and do this research paper that Sherry's been talking about, and to do it without credit.
Yes.
I can just hear
Yes.
your
I don't know if fascinated is the term, or more puzzled was
puzzle.
the term.
That's a good one. Why would you do that?
Right. They were, at the time when I joined Kalosophic, one was still in high school and one was in college. And they, of course, were doing all of their work for a credit or a grade.
Exactly, yeah.
And having to do it rather than wanting to do it. And when I joined Kalosophic, I thought it was a wonderful opportunity to learn about things that were not necessarily on my radar screen as far as topics that I would delve into, and also the opportunity to keep my mind active as I'm getting up there in years. But they were very puzzled by the fact I would go into that much work without getting a reward at the end, so to speak.
Okay, but as you've indicated, the reward in being active in Kalosophic is that you keep your mind active
Yes.
and you do this research into a
Absolutely.
particular topic.
Yes, and I also think, as I mentioned in the article a little bit, is that on some topics per year you are forced to, in a way, research something that you normally would not have any more than a fleeting interest in. And I think in that regards it helps you to keep current with things that
Okay,
are going on,
okay.
and to find out about new ideas, experiences, people that are in the world.
Okay.
And that's very beneficial to
Okay.
everybody.
Now, the term topic has come up here several times. And that's the other thing I think that's really fascinating me about the Kalosophic Club, and that is that you have a common theme, a common topic. Is that
Right,
my
that's correct.
understanding? When did that come about, Margie? When did the club first decide to have this common theme?
As far as we can tell, from the beginning. And
Okay.
this is what makes Kalosophic Club at Paducah unique. When I started searching for facts about the origination of the group, I spent some time one evening just looking on the internet to see if I could find any other group anywhere, actually, that was like ours. I found many groups that were similar, book clubs, even garden clubs that did more than just garden. But I found no group on the internet that chose a topic and then the rest of us write subtopics, is what we usually refer to them as.
Okay. And the subtopic would be then the topic of your paper. Now, Jan, you had an experience in doing some research
Yes.
that took you to Chicago.
Yes, I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, actually spent middle school and high school there, and often visited the Field Museum, the Natural History Museum. and was always puzzled and interested in a stone sculpture of a replica of what is called a moai from the Easter Island. Some of you may recognize almost an eyeless type,
Yes.
large-nosed statue.
Right.
And our topic several years ago was islands, so therefore I decided I would investigate the Easter Island statues. That led me to going back to the Field Museum
Okay. Okay.
and seeing if that particular
Statue were
statue
still
was
there.
and it was not. So I then talked with several people in the museum, and they gave me a number of the curator of the Polynesian or Pacific Islands aspect of the museum. I contacted his secretary and subsequently met with him on another trip to Chicago, and he was extremely interested, as was his secretary, about our club. In fact, asked me to bring a copy of the bylaws, and we spent about 20 minutes in the lobby of the museum, first discussing the club, and I think trying to ascertain if I was legitimate. And thereupon took me to a huge storage room where I was privileged enough to see some Easter Island artifacts that had not been on display in the museum for years that were, I guess, priceless.
Including this statue that you were looking for? You never did find it?
I did find out.
Oh, you did find it?
He had done some research in regards to the statue and found out, it was prior to his arrival at the museum, found out that that had been a replica that through the years school children had poked pencils in and written on it, and it was no longer with us.
Okay, okay.
But some of the other items that I spoke about in my paper were there.
Okay.
And he let me photograph them, and we had a very nice talk.
Okay.
And he was extremely interested in this club. He had gotten his master's and 2 PhDs at Harvard, had really never heard of a club like this either. So that was, I think, as interesting to him as the Easter Island was to me.
Oh, that's great. Sherry, back to, what are some topics of papers that you have presented at Kalosophic?
After 24 years, it's been varied, as you might imagine. My very first year, we were doing cities of the world, so I chose Venice, and I had been there. So even though I'd been to Venice, when I chose to do the research on it, I learned so much more than I ever thought I knew about the city. And we have done famous trials. We have done the 18th century a couple of times, which is very wide, as you might imagine, and so it's the topic could have been anything.
You've done theater and drama.
We did drama last year. As Margie would note, the first year we found out that the group did their research on drama. So we decided in preparation for the 100th year we would do drama once more.
Okay, great.
So I did, under drama, I did Neil Simon, which is one of my very favorite playwrights ever. And so that was a lot of fun. And perhaps one of the most fun topics I did was under Americana, and I did bluegrass music. I went to Owensboro where they have a bluegrass museum, which I recommend for anybody. It was fantastic. Once again, my son was involved with this because he is a music lover and has friends at a record company in North Carolina. So he helped me procure some CDs, and now I have turned into a bluegrass music fan because of doing that paper.
And I think you played some of the some bluegrass during your paper
I did.
as you were
did.
presenting that.
And now I dance around the house with it.
Oh, that's great. With your paper or with the music?
No, not with the paper, with the music.
Margie, what are some of the papers that you presented over the years? Can you?
Well, my first year was 1978, and Dr. Zhivago was my paper. I've forgotten what the main subject was. I think it was great writers of Western writers or something.
Okay, okay.
But that was my first one, and I still remember that vividly. My last paper was on our subject was religions, various religions of the world, and so I did something that involved even some research that I was trying to do on my family because of them being missionaries in China.
Okay.
My mom and dad, and my living there when I was a small child. So,
Okay, fascinating.
in between, one of the things I remember that I learned the most was the year that we did economics.
Ooh,
And-
that would have been a tough one. I'm
And I
certainly glad I wasn't part of that.
Well, I got the teaching company. I don't know if you all are, some of us are familiar with them. They have them down at the McCracken County Library now, quite a collection of the teaching company tapes. And I
Okay.
got their teaching company tapes on Economics 101 and learned an area that I had never studied
Oh,
before.
that's fascinating. That's
And,
fascinating.
Oh goodness, I did Louis the 14th and
Okay. How many honorary members are there now?
I think
Margie?
it's 9.
9 honorary members. Okay. Okay. How many men ever are invited to speak at Kalosophic? Ann?
I don't think any.
Well, we have had one
Yeah,
gentleman.
I was going to say,
I
and
was
I wish
absent.
I wish I had done my
Yeah, I wasn't
research
there
on this
either that
one.
day.
It was wonderful.
We have
That-
had a guest artist, a male guest artist at one time.
That was not I.
No, it was not you,
Oh, I didn't
Andrew.
bring my paints.
We had someone come.
Or I didn't come and sing bluegrass.
I think I can't remember, but April Cochran, who
Okay, sure.
was a member at the time and
Right.
had to drop out because of professional reasons, invited Al Knudsen to come. And
Sure.
he sang one of Neil Sondheim's music numbers for us
Okay,
that day.
okay.
But men are always wanting to come.
Yes, again, in my 40 years of being in Paducah, I've always wanted to be invited to Kalosophic, and I think what I did was on Irving Cobb.
Yes, it was.
that
I
day,
was there.
I
It was
believe.
wonderful.
Well, thanks.
Sorry,
Jan.
I was
Thanks.
absent.
Well, I'm sorry
I'm
you
so
weren't there either, Ann. Now we've already established that this year you decided thematically that you would go back and do your 2006 series on drama. So tell us a little bit about the celebration that's going on with Kalosophic.
Well, this fall we're going to have a coffee reception for past and present members. We will have our booklet ready that Margie worked so hard on, did such an excellent job of our history.
So
We
is
will
this
have
the
some-
only published history of the Kalosophic Club that will be
recent
coming out?
one.
that was what I'd figured out because over the years we kind of accumulated, and I looked in the box of that the president's passes from president to president, and there had been kind of one particular one published. I think it was in March 1952.
It was small, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't as in-depth as yours.
But that's what we decided that we would do with this booklet that's coming out now, is to pull together everything that we know. I did go down and look at microfilm several afternoons of the Paducah Evening Sun.
My goodness.
In 1906, there were 5 newspapers in Paducah. And I never got beyond the Evening Sun. If I intend to go back and see if I can find anything in any of the other papers
Okay.
to substantiate. But that was where I picked up on actually finding something, and it's in the booklet. I
Okay.
quote from the Evening Sun for that, I think it was the last September of 1906, telling
Okay,
about the
okay,
meeting coming
okay,
up.
Okay. I think this is really interesting, Ann. Now that you're current president, we can make this connection. Margie saying that a box is passed down from president to president. What's involved in being president of Kalosophic? What?
Well, you have to be there. Well, every Friday I conduct the meeting and try to get prepared. You know who's going to give the paper
Okay.
this week, next week. We discuss issues that come up in the club, and you just try to keep things rolling smoothly and try to encourage people to come every Friday.
Are you the keeper of the theme. Are you the keeper of the theme every year, or
No, well,
do you have a
we have,
program?
we have a business meeting every year where we decide
Okay.
the theme. There are no
Okay.
papers given that day.
Okay.
There's a
And-
program.
It's a very,
It's
very
like a-
complicated process.
It's yeah,
Very
and
competitive.
We have
Very
suggestions,
yes.
and then we
Do you vote?
vote.
Okay.
Yes.
Secret
So-
ballot?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, my.
And then
It's a
we
process.
draw numbers to see when you can give your paper. I always want to be first, but I'm afraid people have caught on to that idea. And so now I don't always get the first spot, but it's okay. I'm adjusting to it.
Okay, so,
So that's how you decide when your paper is going to be given.
Okay,
And
s-
you choose.
Now,
Okay,
that's a fairly new activity. When I
We-
came into the club, you just kind of signed up.
Right.
so
Yeah, it's
like,
changed.
like
The
the
procedure is
calendar,
scientific
a
thing,
calendar went
Andrew.
around and
It's
you
very
selected it.
scientific.
It's changing over the
done.
years.
Very
Yes,
scientifically
we
done.
have
It's
a
almost
bag
like-
of chips with
Oh,
numbers on
okay,
it.
yeah,
we,
yeah.
we draw
Sort of
out
like
to
the
get our
hermetically
place.
That's only about
sealed
2 or 3
jars.
years
And
old.
so
that
if you
Johnny
get number
Carson-
1, you get to look at the whole calendar and pick your date.
So you hope for a
I
number.
have gotten number 23, and so.
Every year?
No,
No,
no.
okay,
But
not
anyway.
every year. That's
But it
that's
is
not
the
lucky
method
draw.
of choosing the theme is very competitive, and people who give ideas are asked. If you have an idea for a theme, you're asked to come up with at least 24 ideas, so that we know there's going to be enough topics under that theme that all members could give a paper.
Whoa.
So
And
if
there's
you-
a program
So that's
committee,
part of
too.
that's part of the marketing
Right.
campaign is that if I were to come up with a topic, then I would have to identify maybe 25 subtopics. Is that
Right.
correct? Is that what I'm hearing you
Exactly.
say?
I think it's hard to choose.
Ooh, yeah.
I always have trouble.
Oh,
And that's part of the competition too, is if you choose your number, you can also jot down if you've had an idea for that topic, so no one else will.
So do you
Take it.
which do you do first as a group? Do you select the topic
Yes.
first?
Topic first.
And then you draw
Select the
for your
numbers.
your
Your
position,
spot.
your spot.
Then you have till August the 1st to turn it in, what you're going to do. And you shouldn't.
What your subtopic is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Shouldn't change after that.
then you have a program printed, I would assume, so that everybody knows what the subtopic is for each Friday. You have one paper a week, is that correct?
That's correct.
And,
Except for
and
the business meeting.
as well as the business meeting. And I understand, one of the most interesting people I ever met in the city of Paducah was Harriet Boswell, who was the librarian, wasn't she, at the Carnegie Library. And I understand that it was she who encouraged in the early years, the Kalosophic Club to meet at the Carnegie Library. Is that correct,
Well,
Margie?
I don't know that I found, that could be true. I didn't see that written down that specifically.
I might have
But
dreamed that too, Margie.
Well, no, it's
I might have
possible.
divined it.
There are a lot of things that we still haven't tied down that
Okay,
much. But
okay.
I wouldn't be surprised, but that would be true. The club started meeting in the library in 1915.
Okay, okay. And you've continued to meet there.
Right.
Yes.
The old Carnegie and now the McCracken County Library every Friday.
Every Friday.
Again, from after Labor Day through
April.
April. Okay.
And
This is-
as far as through the 100 years, as far as we can see, there was never a break in the meetings.
Oh, that's wonderful. Never for World War I, World War II?
Found apparently not. We do not have any program booklets before 1955. In fact, I would like to tell folks out there, if you have anything in your attic that you come across
It's very good.
for Kalosophic, please let one of us know.
Does Market House Museum not have anything for Kalosophic?
I
know.
neglected to even check
I
that
don't
out.
know. That might be a good resource. And one of the other things that's always fascinated me, I think, about Kalosophic is how you become a member.
That's a good question.
I mean, I know that there's some generational folks. I mean, Sherry, your mother-in-law was a member, and now you're a member. I think there's some other members current members or honorary members who had in-laws or relatives who had been members in the past. How do you become a member of
Well,
Kalosophic?
I think that's a really interesting question because for a while, after having been here so long, and Margie can verify this as well, it's not like people were clamoring to do this sometimes. You have to kind of identify people who are interested in this kind of program. It isn't for everybody.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it, I think, because when I became a member at age 36, my
Oh.
son was 6 years old, and I would encourage us to find younger members now because as we get older, it's nice to have the younger members. But I think you just sort of have to talk about it in the community, and if somebody like Ann would say, "Oh, well, that's interesting to me," that's how we.
That's how you zero
That's
in
right,
on a potential.
Exactly.
Ann, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say it's a commitment, and you want
Exactly.
to ask people who are willing to make the commitment.
Right.
And the commitment is to 25 papers
And
well,
to
and
attend.
to attend.
and to attend.
And you know, sometimes
Do you have to have written excuse?
well, no, you don't. But
Preferably out of town or ill.
yes, pretty
Pretty serious.
serious,
Pretty
especially
serious.
when you're president and you notice. But no, I'm kidding. But it is a commitment, and you want to be there. The papers really take a lot of work. They're very interesting. So when you choose a member, you want to make sure that person is willing to make the commitment to come, to listen, to enjoy all the hard work and that these people have put into to write these papers. It becomes all-consuming. Your family is involved, friends. I just gave my paper last Friday, and I couldn't shake it for about 24 hours. I mean, it just absolutely takes over. So
Yeah,
you want
certainly,
people
certainly.
who are willing to be that enthusiastic and
Yeah.
committed.
Yeah.
And it's really fun and interesting. It's very worth it.
Well, it sounds that way to me. And as we think about this momentous occasion, the 100th anniversary of Kalosophic, and we think about this commitment of young women in this community to continue lifelong learning, even when their families, as Ann has said, their friends, Jan, you've mentioned this with your children, are going, geez, why would I want to do that? I mean, I'm not getting credit
hard to
for it.
explain.
But it keeps us mentally active. It keeps us involved. And it's this commitment. It's a commitment to lifelong learning. It's a commitment to our community. And you certainly are to be commended on continuing this commitment to lifelong learning for 100 years. And may it go for another 100 years. And may this record of this 100th anniversary be significant as part of the history. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
Andrew.
you.